Sammy Mack, welcome to Writers in Relationship.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so exciting to be here. We were talking a little bit before we started the tape, but you're a reporter on NPR. Oh my God, my fangirl energy just got so activated. I'm so impressed with everything that I've seen that you've done. I haven't seen everything that you've done. And it's so thrilling to have you be part of the Hodgepodge experience and issue 5.1. And so typically I have a thing for origin stories. We don't know each other. This is the first time we've met, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about how you became involved in Hodgepodge.
Yeah, so I actually this is oh sorry, that's my dog Chompers.
Dogs are
I
welcome.
thanks. I no longer work in a newsroom actually. So I don't report for public radio anymore in general. There recently was something that I kind of came out of radio retirement for, but I left the newsroom a couple of years ago, and at the time I thought I was going to be writing a book of nonfiction. COVID happened, and I started writing fiction around the same time, kind of for fun for me to see if I could. And during that period, a couple of years ago, I had taken a workshop. I had done a workshop online and met Pam, who we stayed in touch with, and we ran into each other online again somewhere else. And she told me about Hodgepodge and invited me to join. And so here we are, and I'm thrilled to be here. And part of what I'm really excited about is that one of the things I missed when I left working in news was having a community of people around me who were doing the same thing that I could just turn to and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, what are you working on? Or like, can I run something by you? Like that I have missed a lot. I don't miss working in the news cycle, but I do miss that part of it.
Well, that's great to hear because it's something that we're working on sort of actively and um yeah, so and Pam's a good friend of mine, so it's just fun to sort of see where the
She's
kids.
fabulous.
I know she's a friggin' riot too. She's got the most wacky, hilarious, off the wall sense of humor of anybody, and she's brilliant too. So great. So just tell us a little bit about your setting, where you are and just how that, if it does, filters into your writing.
Yeah, totally. So right now I am physically in a room in my house with bookshelves behind me. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I am really interested in setting and writing in general, and this was true when I was working in journalism as well. But even before that, like as a kid, I loved stories that had really immersive senses of place. I didn't know the term sense of place until much later in my life, but like I think it's something that I've always been drawn to. And it, as somebody who worked in a local newsroom, it became really central to the kind of work that I was doing. And I was lucky to work in a place where I had editors who really valued that. And since I've started writing fiction, I feel like place and setting is really important. And so the way that shows up in where I've lived and where I am now is a lot of the writing that I do is set in the South. And in part because those are landscapes that I really know, and I have an interest in how place affects character and affects our lenses on how we understand the world around us, and the kinds of stories that there are universal themes and universal narratives, but then there are the stories within those things that can only happen because of where they are. And those are the kinds of stories that I really like.
And Eight Mount Olympus, which is your story for issue 5.1, that takes place in Florida, is that correct?
It takes place some in Central Florida and some on the Gulf Coast, yeah, and kind of south of Mobile.
And the ocean is a big part
The
of
ocean
it,
is a
right?
big piece of it. Yeah, I grew up on the Gulf, and
Uh,
yeah, and so I love writing about her. She's really important to me.
it,
So a
it
lot of
was the thing with like when the setting becomes a character, and I feel that in your piece,
yes.
especially
Oh,
the
I'm so glad to hear
like,
that.
that's a character. That's an important being.
And that's how I feel about her. That's how I feel about the Gulf in general, and I'm so glad that that came through. But yeah, yeah. So the character in the story, the main character in the story, Sissy, was raised in Central Florida in ranch land, and she ends up going elsewhere in life, and then we meet her later in life when she's moved to the Gulf Coast. But like she carries that landscape with her, and her sort of sense of beauty comes through that.
And you're in Arkansas now?
I am.
Landlocked Arkansas.
There's a river. There's
Okay.
a river. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I try not to be too far away from the ocean for too long. Like I try to get back to the Gulf, get my feet in it at least once a year. And we are a long drive, but we are driving distance from it. So we do try and pack the car up with the kids and head down there at least once a year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's go back and talk a little bit about your relationship with writing. How did you start? Like, do you have an origin story with writing, your passion for writing?
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid who loved stories. I loved, before I could read, I loved being read to. And I really fell in love with language at a couple of different steps in my life. When I was in I had a first grade teacher who told my parents, like, you know what, you should read your like kids' versions of the classics. And like such good advice. Thank you, Miss Winner, wherever you are. Thank you. And so like that's how I was introduced to the Iliad, and like really this. I remember there's this edition of like Shakespeare for kids that my parents got at the library that had these gorgeous illustrations and then like snippets and like the witch's speech from Macbeth and like like that kind of stuff filled my head. I'm really lucky that stuff was filling my head pretty early. And then I was also lucky to grow up in a town that had a really strong youth media program through our daily newspaper. And so our fifth grade teacher had a friendship with a local features writer who was a Pulitzer Prize winner, who would like come in once a week and like do stuff with us and have us look for like sparkling words and good verbs. And like I got the bug and I started writing for the paper when I was in middle school. And then pretty early on, somebody told me like, hey, if you want to be a journalist, like just keep writing and go study something you're interested in, so you always have something to write about. Which is how I ended up in public health programs in college and grad school. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up in radio, which was a different kind of writing, and I loved it, and I took to that really quickly. Like I think it took me longer to find my voice in print and writing for the eye than it did for writing for the ear. Like that just like made sense to me, and it took me a while to like get good at it, but like I knew what I was aiming for in a way that like I had sort of struggled to find in print, and I loved it. And then I had always like had that little fiction bug in the back of my head, but not had the space for it. And then all of a sudden I did. I left the newsroom, had kids, stayed at home, thought I was going to write another book. Anyway, we talked about that part, but now I feel like I am in a place where I'm kind of starting over, but also I know what it feels like to have found my voice in another medium in writing. And so I am keeping the faith that that will happen again.
Tell us a little bit about the relationship between what you were doing in journalism and your process in writing fiction, if there is one, or how they're different if there isn't one.
It's easier to talk about how they're different because I thought I was going to have more of a jump start, and it turns out I was wrong. Because like in journalism, it's all true. Like everything has to be fact checkably true. Every single little detail has to be something that happened exactly the way that it happened. And if I got stuck on something, I could just like pick up a phone and be like, okay, wait, what happened next? Like, who was in the room? How did you feel about it? Like that. Whereas like this, I'm just like, all right, I just have to make a choice and I have to make it up, which at first felt really subversive, which sounds really silly to other fiction writers, but like, you know, Like I've been working on this novel for a couple of years, and at one point it's largely set in New Orleans, which is a place where I lived. And at one point I was like really like sweating over what neighborhood to put it in, and because each neighborhood has its own character and vibe and like deep history. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, I get to make it up. I can make up a neighborhood and it can move around on the map and it's fine. It's fine. That's fine. Nobody's going to be fact checking that. That's great. Actually, I should do that. So like some of it has been like navigating some of that stuff. Yeah, but I think that also like it's so nice to be working in a medium where like before I had I had spaces of seconds that I was working with, like literally seconds. You know, like a feature story was 4 minutes, and like that's it's really hard to and I would sometimes go long, and sometimes special arrangements were made, which was great. But like on the whole, like that's kind of generally the max. Whereas like this, I'm like, I get to go long. Great. I'll cut it out later if I need to.
Yeah, there's a lot more
Yeah.
space for you to do more with.
Yeah, and so some of the feedback that I have gotten that is pretty common is like, slow down. Slow down. You can spend more time on this. That's okay. That's okay. Flesh it out. It's okay.
What about this? Because I'm a little bit obsessed with this idea of truthfulness, especially
Hmm.
in fiction, and I wonder, do you have any thoughts about that? Like it's a very different path toward truthfulness than
Yeah.
journalism, but there's still everyone's always striving for that. And I wonder, I'm just curious from your point of view how you approach that.
Yeah. The way that I think about it, because like I said, I started as a kid in journalism. So I am like, I am really schooled in like I came up in an idea of journalism at a moment where like I have very very strong not flexible feelings about what the truth is. And sometimes when I, especially, again, when I first started writing fiction, I've chilled a little bit when I hear fiction writers talking about the truth. It's like nails on a chalkboard a little bit. Um, in part because like truth in journalism is under assault in other ways. So like I know what they mean, and they mean really well, and that is a very important word to them, and we just use it differently, and it kills me. What I think about is resonance. So when I hear somebody talking about that, and they're not talking about something that's like fact checkably true, what I hear them saying is they want something that resonates. And that is sort of what I aim for. And some of that does involve research, because I don't want to write a story set in a place where somebody who has been in that place is like, oh no, 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 she got the details wrong. Right. So there is stuff in there that I have researched, but it's not true.
Yeah, that's I like that framing. And it is funny how I mean, having not really been, I mean, I've done some articles, but I wasn't a journalist, so I think I'm in that category of other people that use the word in an annoying way, because it is different. It's not what happened, but it is something that rings true, and that does speak to resonance. I think that's a better word. Yeah.
Feel free to share it with other people.
Yes, please share it. Um, I like to ask people who are guests, what's a relationship that's very alive for you right now? A relationship that impacts your writing?
Um, I was thinking about that in preparation for this. I've been thinking a lot about the relationships that I've had with editors, and like, yeah, and how lucky I am to have had some really good teaching editors with very high standards. I am extremely lucky on that front, and I think having had that still affects my writing in terms of like what I expect of myself, because I've felt really high expectations from other people. And not just high expectations, but like high expectations in a way that like they know me, they know what I'm capable of, they know when I'm phoning it in and would like call me out on it. And so to have had that like again, now that I'm not in a newsroom and I'm working in a different medium, I feel that absence, but I also have internalized it in a way that I think is probably helpful.
It's almost like the voice of the parent, the internalized voice of the good parent, hopefully.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just like, try again.
What makes a good relationship with an editor?
I think communication first, communication, and um, having a shared language and a shared set of values. And if you're meeting somebody from the start, finding a way to establish what that is, and by values, I mean, like, are you working with someone who is expecting a certain kind of line level poetry? Are you working with someone who has hangups about certain things, and like that's harder to suss out until you've worked with somebody for a little while? Are you working with someone who is open to collaboration or is more inflexible? And so like knowing what you're working with the other person, that involves communication, and that's important because it helps me anyway figure out like, okay, this person's really good at this and I should listen to them when they tell me this. And conversely, sometimes like this person's always gonna like pick up on this one little thing, and I like the way I have it, and I can kind of ignore that. Like that's also like a learned thing in a relationship with an editor, and so I think like having that back and forth, and also from the editor side, being able to identify what, and this is in fiction, what the story wants to be, and to see past what you want, and to sort of understand what the writer is going for, what the story is asking for, and being able to like coach that out of the writer, I think is an incredibly important, nuanced, rare skill. And I don't know how you teach that or learn it other than like reading it a lot and just doing the thing a lot.
Yeah, like we talk about wanting the story, nurturing the story to be its best self, the best version of itself. And how, yeah, how do you do that? It's not always clear.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And that's one that like I'm still early enough in this process that I'm trying to figure that out. I in workshops and stuff when I when I first started, here's another thing. This is not flattering. When I first started in fiction, I went to a workshop, and I was as I brought the spirit to the workshop that I would have brought to the newsroom. And it turns out that was like not great because that's very blunt and it's very like not helpful necessarily, particularly to an artist who is maybe not used to that kind of level of directness. And so like being better at like finessing that, and also like recognizing who's sitting across the table from you and what they want and like what their expectations are. So yeah, it's a process. It's a process. I'm a lot
Yeah.
gentler now and more careful now when I first meet someone.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been doing some professional development about just sort of how to talk about the feedback, because how it's presented and how you phrase things, I think is at least as important as what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And there's
Yeah.
there's there's this new thing that I started. I mean, I've been a college writing teacher for about 20 years, and I've really gotten away from very direct like statements like this is unclear or this is this, and I talk about my own experience as a reader. And I find that that lands differently.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what you meant here, or I'm
Yeah.
feeling confused. I'm out of the story here. I'm distracted, and there's something a little bit, there's a step removed from that where I'm giving them information nobody, your readers are not going to be that different. Yeah, we're all different, but we're not that different. So if you
Yeah, and
have an
you're
issue,
approaching it with a curiosity there too, and
right,
I think that
right.
that's like you're not here to solve the problem, like you're here to
That's your
like
job as the writer, right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah, and that's a
flagging something.
very different mind frame. Yeah.
And I do find that, and when I'm on the other side, when I'm receiving it, it's like, oh, that's valuable information, because I don't want them to be confused. I don't want them to be out of the story. So now I know, so it's
Right.
just, it really kind of shuffles the whole thing around into a much more collaborative dialogue, I find. But that took me years to get to, it's not, there's nobody's there, it's nobody's telling me to do that. I sort of figured it out through years of, things not working very well with editors.
Well earned.
Yeah.
Well earned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another question that, again, I'm just sort of curious in general. What do you think writers can do on their end, and they have the less powerful position, but to encourage a good relationship? Like, are there best practices on the writer side
Ooh.
to pull for something that's going to go well with an editor?
Um, I mean, starting with like give them your best work. And I mean, it sounds very straightforward, but like really like before this hits an editor's eye, have you done your spell check? Have you gone through? Have you read it out loud? Have you done absolutely everything you can do to make it the best version of the thing? Because they're not there to solve the problem. So if you hand it to somebody and you're like, I know this section doesn't make sense, but I'm just gonna whatever, like that's you're not gonna get the best coaching that you want or the piece needs. So that's step one. And then I think beyond that, um, accepting feedback with grace. You know, like if you start to get defensive, like they may pull back and be like, "Ugh, this isn't worth the fight." Just listening to what is being said. Um, it is important to know what you've got though, right? Because sometimes you will hear things not that are not helpful. And sorting through that and being able to filter that is a skill. Um, but it's not necessarily one that you fight in the moment. And I think there's like, standing up for your piece is important in its own way. And also you don't like you got to balance it. You got to balance it. So I think that's and that can be hard. And then also, like this is a really hard one to learn, I think. Um not taking it personally when it's not personal. And
It feels personal. It
I
feels
know.
feel personal, but it isn't. It's that thing of like, if you, and I think I always like to do live sessions, because if I can look in your eyes and we can have
Yes.
a conversation, the feeling that we're on the same side is just so much easier to generate than if I'm
Yeah.
sending you like written, like it's just harder. And I think if I'm on your side, you're going to be more
Yes.
inclined to take things in a productive and constructive way that aren't personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like it's hard to stay curious and open when you are like handing your baby over to someone,
Very hard. Yeah.
but also I think it's really important.
Yeah. It's like we need to do it. It's funny when you were saying you have to like give. I'm really having trouble with my story for this issue, and I hit my friend Heather up and I said, "Can you look? The ending isn't working, and I'm like, no, that's not right. Like it's not her job to solve the ending for me. I need to figure it out and send her something." But it's the child side. It's like, somebody fix this. But
Yeah.
it's not her job to fix it for me. I have to be the adult and find that.
And also, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It is okay to ask for help,
Right.
especially if
But
it's
the
somebody that you have
line,
a relationship with. Yeah,
right.
I know.
The
I know.
line is, it's fuzzy. It's not always,
Yeah.
crystal clear. But that, like, I like the framework of relationships, because we we're always in relationship with ourselves, you know, with our various selves, and the relationship aspect always is a factor in how the work ends up going, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I
I
think
agree
it's
with
just
that.
important to think about it as sort of as a, you know, parallel track with the actual work that you're doing. Tell us a little about eight Mount Olympus, because I think people are going to really want to dive in and check it out.
So the piece of art that I chose that like called out to me when we were looking at the images is called Zeus, and it is a picture of a woman surrounded by three bulls. And immediately when I was looking at it, so backing up, the novel that I'm working on is a riff on the Cassandra myth. And I've been reading for the past couple of years a lot of Greek mythology, which has been a total joy because that is a part of the curriculum that I did not get when I was in public health school. So so like I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, okay, great. Like who is she? What is she doing here? And like it got me thinking about like women who love men who are also bulls and like the symbolism of that and like what do we learn from these stories today? And there's in Greek mythology, there's Pasiphae and Europa, and Europa gets carted off by Zeus and drawn across the sea, and she becomes Europe, and that's like a depending on who tells the story. This is the other great thing, like depending on who tells the story, because there's so many different versions of the story. There's not like there's not canonical versions really. There's what was has survived the millennia, but so anyway, so there's her story, and then she is mother to Pasiphae, or mother-in-law. She's mother-in-law to Pasiphae, who ends up having an affair with a bull and giving birth to the Minotaur. And again, there's different variations on that story about who the villain is, and who was acting poorly and like who deserved what. So I was thinking about that, and what came pretty quickly after that was like this thought of like the daughter of a rodeo queen, which is who Sissy is. And we meet Sissy, this woman, at a moment where her adult stepchildren are having an intervention because she has married their father, who is significantly older and very rich. Sissy is a woman who has had a series of increasingly prosperous husbands, but she's with George now, and what the adult children don't know is that Sissy comes from her own sort of royalty, which is true of the women in Greek mythology. Like they're not like random poor girls picked off the street. They are princesses and queens. And so like also what does that power dynamic bring to a relationship with a man who is this sort of like bull of a human being? And so that's everything else like spilled out of that.
It's very exciting. I didn't understand the mythology that was sort of behind the
And
story.
hopefully you didn't need to.
No,
Hopefully
I
you didn't.
totally didn't need to. No,
Okay, okay,
I
good.
loved it as it was, but now I love it even
Okay,
more.
okay, good.
It's thrilling. And just to also to know that there's something in your novel, like I'm already looking forward to your novel. So
Thanks.
that's
I got to finish
great.
it first.
I know, but you know, you gotta have some cheerleaders like egging you
Thank
on.
you.
Just in closing, Sammy, if you had one piece of advice to impart to other writers who are listening, because it's mostly writers who are in my audience, or our audience for Hodgepodge and writers in relationship, what would that be?
You have to read. You have to read and read and read and read and read. And I know that that's really common advice, but it's really true. Like I thought I was well read until I started writing fiction, and then had a very embarrassing interaction with someone who is brilliant and I'm a huge fan of. And like I realized that like there are open chasms of things that I should have read at this stage in my life if I want to be a fiction writer that I haven't. I'm no longer embarrassed about that. It is actually a pleasure to be in my 40s and encountering some of these great works at this point in my life where I have so many points of entry. But you do have to read. You have to read and read and read. And there's a second step to that, which is like you have to be curious. And this has come up a couple times in our conversation, but I really think that a sense of curiosity about story and the mechanics of story is important. And that's a muscle. I think that's like curiosity is a muscle. Like, it helps. There are some people who are just naturally curious about everything and they just deep dive on their own, but like you can learn to ask like, wait, why is this working? What about this writing makes me feel this way? How did they pull this off? Like, what is this structure that they're using? At what moment did they choose to reveal the detail? At what point did the reversal get introduced? Like those kinds of questions, and just being really curious about what you're reading.
And do you take classes and workshops? Like, is that a regular part of your practice?
I have. I've done a few. I don't do a ton of them. Okay, this is funny. So, and it turns out well. 2 years ago now, a year ago, can't even with the timeline. Anyway, so I live in Little Rock. I work a lot in the University of Arkansas Little Rock Library because the fourth floor of the library is where all of the literary fiction is, all of the mythology is, and it is the quiet floor, which is great. So I will like post up at a table by a window next to a giant pine tree. I feel like I'm in a tree house. It's magical. And one day I was looking through the course catalog to see if there was like anything fun to take, kind of because I was a little bit bored. And I saw there was a novel writing class. And I emailed the professor and was like, hey, I don't have the prereqs, but like also like I have this weird other experience. And he was like, yeah, come on in. And you had to have 50 pages of a novel already to take the class. And so that was good. And the way it was listed in the catalog, the way that I encountered it, I thought I was going to be in like a room with like grad students and like PhD candidates and stuff. It was me and a bunch of undergrads. I walked in, and I don't know if you know that like Steve Buscemi meme where he's like, "Hello, fellow kids." Like that is what I felt like, and I was like, oh no, this is I. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. But then like it turned out they were fabulous and brilliant and generous with their time, and some of them are like still in a writing group with me, and I adore them, and I can't wait to like see where their careers take them. They are serious. They are serious people in a lot of ways. And so yeah, so that was like I don't know that it's ever going to get better than that. so,
That
so yeah,
is so
that was
cool. And what a great lesson for our own ageism. Like I totally would have had
totally,
that same reaction as you, and it just completely flip-flopped, it sounds like.
totally. I could not have been more wrong. They are fabulous. They are fabulous.
Such sweetness. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, thank you, Sammy. It's been such a pleasure, and we're really looking forward to seeing your story in the issue and wishing you all the luck with the novel.
Thank you for having me. I am so lucky to be able to do this, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.